On Sunday, we had the Bahrain Grand Prix. Bahrain is spelled B-A-H and then Rain, R-A-I-N-E. Bahrain is a tiny island nation off the coast of Saudi Arabia in the Persian Gulf. Kind of interesting to research it. I did. Every time there's an F1 race, I kind of researched the area. And Bahrain was one of the more interesting areas I've researched due to Formula One and the geographic location. Lewis Hamilton won the race. Max Verstappen got second. Alex Albon got third. So it was Ferrari, Red Bull. Now, I want to talk about Max Verstappen down the road in a minute. I want to talk about Sergio Perez. But I think it's obvious what I have to talk about, number one, and first and foremost, is that the obvious dominating story is Romain Grosjean's crash. The really, frankly, horrific crash. I mean, he went through the barrier. His car snapped in half. I've never seen that happen before. And I've watched compilations of F1 crashes because I'm fascinated by it. His car was a ball of fire, just like tall, leaping flames up in the air. And it's a terrifying image to see a car just on fire with a driver inside, struggling to get out of the burning car. It's like, oh my gosh. And so if you haven't seen it, even if you're not a Formula One fan, go look up the Bahrain Romain Grosjean crash. It's truly horrifying. It's unbelievable. I don't dare put a video of it on YouTube because I don't want to get removed or copyright struck or whatever. But go look it up. It's worth it to see. You should see it. It's horrifying and shocking. I mean, the front half of the car that Romain Grosjean got out of, that went through the barrier, because our car snapped in half. He's sitting in the front half of the car. It's engulfed in flames that are just high, leaping flames. And when he got out of the car, all that was left was this like charred piece of metal. It's like, oh my God. And he got out okay. He had slightly burned hands, but Romain Grosjean's alive. He put a video on Instagram. He's okay, and that's unbelievable. I mean, it was kind of sobering because F1 cars didn't have halos until 2018. Halos are the ring around the head. It kind of makes a pseudo windshield almost, but there's no screen. It's just a protection for the head. And look up the halo. It's a metal bar around a driver's head. Just look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. And on one hand, the result of this crash is a testament to the safety of Formula One, where they've come a long way. I mean, years ago, a crash like that, Romain Grosjean would have died. Romain Grosjean would have been, this would have been a very different video and a very different topic if this had happened 20 years ago. Romain Grosjean would have been dead. It's awful. It's terrifying. It's true. But even in spite of the fact that he didn't die, he did almost die. And there was a moment where, I mean, the halo protected his head from the barrier. So he went through the barrier. He's jackknifed through it. The halo protected his head, so he didn't go unconscious. He was alive, able to get out. But he had to get out of the car very quickly. There was a brief moment where he was in a race for his life to get out of the burning car. And, I mean, safety measures and all, there was still a race for his life. His life was in danger. I mean, you're always in danger when you drive an F1 car, but there was a moment he's in this burning car, seatbelt, shoe. I mean, his boot came off, trying to get out of this burning car, up and out over it's terrifying. And if he's unconscious or if he's a little bit slower getting out of that car, he dies. He would have died. And that's not an exaggeration. It's just terrifying. And so this, again, the sobering, horrifying moment, this moment in F1, it caused a debate with people saying, did TV show too much? Did TV go too far by repeatedly showing the crash and the fireball over and over and over again? And remember, there was like an hour-long delay. The crash happened. They red flagged the event. Everyone's off the track. And they had to do the work of replacing the barrier. It took about an hour. And they kept showing the replay over and over again. The ball of fire, him getting out of the car, that slow-motion horrific image of smoke and him jumping out, getting sprayed down with a fire extinguisher. And I think also a weird factoid I think people don't realize, you wear 4 layers of fireproof protective gear if you're an F1 driver. It's incredibly hot. One of the things that my girlfriend was watching with me, realizing like, oh, driving an F1 car is a really brutally hot experience. Like your body temperature is insane. And people don't realize about that. Like even in a hot day when it's 90 degrees outside, you're driving an F1 car, the temperature is like 30 degrees hotter in the car when you're driving. It's terrifying, especially on the track. And I guess here's the thing about the replay. Should they have showed the replay? Was it insensitive? Did it cross the line? If Romain Grosjean had died, then yes, absolutely, it would have been insensitive. You shouldn't show that. But in this case, because he lived, it's okay to show it to some degree. And then also, I think it's important to show the replay. I think there's actually a deep importance where you have to remind people how dangerous F1 is. I think F1 actually almost has a responsibility to remind people that it's a dangerous sport. And I understand why F1 drivers, people like Sebastian Vettel and Lando Norris, Carlos Sainz, they don't like seeing that. It's horrifying. And if I was an F1 driver, I'm like, I don't want to watch that crash. I don't need to see it again. I don't want to see that because that could have been them. And it's unsettling to see that. Like, that could have been me in that burning hulk of metal. I mean, I understand why an F1 driver goes, I don't want to watch that, and you shouldn't have shown that. But the FIA and Formula One, I also think, have a responsibility where it's important to be honest and transparent about how dangerous it is. I mean, driving a car incredibly fast, whether they kind of set the example for the world of what it's like to drive a car. And it's dangerous. Not everybody can do it. And not only that, it's not only is it dangerous, there's also a lot of physical difficulties of driving. Like, try to push down the brake pedal on an F1 car. It's unbelievable how hard it is. And so I guess I'm glad Romain Grosjean is okay. Thank goodness. But I also think, again, F1 has a responsibility to be transparent and honest about the dangers of F1. And part of that is showing the replay. It's burned into my mind forever, that image of Romain Grosjean getting out. I never did, but I never would anyway, especially because of this moment, take for granted what an F1 driver does, the risk they take and the danger and the difficulty of what they do. And so that replay does definitely get that point across. Now, I want to shift gears to maybe, I don't know if more lighthearted, but we'll talk about other parts of the race now. First of all, I felt really terrible for Sergio Perez. He had 3 laps to go. He was in 3rd place, a podium position. And then suddenly, Sergio Perez's Racing Point just caught on fire. I mean, smoke coming out, like his car was on fire behind him. It's terrible. And I felt so bad for the guy. Just awful luck for him, for Sergio Perez, for Racing Point. And it cost him a podium. It's terrible. I feel so bad for him. I also felt sad for the Racing Point team principal, Otmar Safnauer. Just watching him, like, head down in his arms, looked like, I don't know if he was crying, but he definitely just looked depressed and sad. Hand down in his hands, just head down. I hope that Otmar's job is secure. I really like him. And I want to see him continue to make progress with what he's done at Racing Point. Like, Racing Point has made a lot of progress. I want to see that continue with them. But I think, and I personally hope, that Otmar Safnauer is a part of the progress moving forward. Now, it was a wild race. I want to keep beating this drum, though, that it's insane that Sergio Perez does not have a drive next year in Formula One. If he's not in F1 next year, it's criminal. It's ridiculous and stupid that other guys like Antonio Giovinazzi and Nicholas Latifi have a drive when Sergio Perez does not. I mean, he's one of the top 5 or 6 drivers in F1, and nobody wants him. Nobody wants to compete and get better. It's crazy to me. And it's just a reminder of how much of F1 is politics and money and ridiculous nonsense. It's just sad that one of the best drivers in the sport may not drive next year because of other outside power and nonsense. It's just sad and stupid. Now, I want to talk about Max Verstappen because he got second at Bahrain, and he really, really wants to finish second in the Formula One drivers' standings and the drivers' championship because it'd be a big win for him. Think about it this way, where if he finished ahead of a superior Mercedes car in an inferior Red Bull car, that'd say a lot about Max and his talent as a driver, where I'm sure he'd feel good about that victory, saying, you know what, I did what I could, and I beat the people in front of me. So I think that if Max Verstappen gets second in F1 this year, it'd be a huge testament to him and his talent as a driver. And I hope he does. I like Max. I'm rooting for him. I want to see that happen. Now, I also got to say, I was disappointed by Sebastian Vettel in this race. He didn't do much of anything. He finished 13th. And after finishing 3rd in Turkey, I was like, man, maybe Sebastian Vettel's figuring things out in that Ferrari. And I thought he was finally making progress. Apparently he wasn't. I just feel sad about that. It was more a moment of Sebastian Vettel being an opportunist in Turkey than it was him figuring out his car and driving a better race. It's kind of disappointing and sad to me. Now, the final thing I want to say is that F1 has really won over my girlfriend. She's watched the last 3 races in a row now with me, sitting next to me on the couch, and been engaged and interested. And I cover sports for a living. It's my job. I watch sports all the time. I cannot get her to watch football with me. My favorite sport, football. Can't get her to watch it. Doesn't care. Doesn't want to watch it. Doesn't understand it. She likes F1 though. My girlfriend, F1 is won over my girlfriend. She likes it. It's interesting to her. It's easier to understand. And I think that says a lot about Formula One, where it's just this impressive spectacle. And if you haven't ever watched Formula One, it's very easy to get into because it's guys trying to beat each other on a track. It's interesting. It's fun. If you watch Netflix's Drive to Survive series, you really get a full understanding of F1. And I cannot recommend Formula One enough to people. It's just really full of great dramatic moments. The music is great. It's just fun. It's exciting. And also the commentary is really good. I mean, if you watch an NFL game, there's 16 a week. There's only so many good broadcasters to go around. If you have 13 games happening all on the same day, you can't get all the best broadcasters to every single game. F1 has one broadcast team, and they're phenomenal. They're really good. There's no lull in really good coverage. And so I walk away. I'm very impressed and satisfied and happy with Formula One. It's a great product. People should watch it. And I had a great time. I don't know if great's the right word there. I had an entertaining, interesting time watching the Bahrain Grand Prix. And I'm glad Romain Grosjean is alive and okay. And I'm very, very happy he made it. Because that crash, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's horrifying. And I'm glad that Romain Grosjean is alive and doing well today.